I know I'm trying to think while I'm eating my M&Ms. So there's a lot of things that change in certain generations. Um, Everything from technology and how we interact with people and what we value. And there was a point in the media where it was talking about how certain social media and apps were changing what people value and responsibility and the next generation type of things. And since the millennial generation kind of slowed down a lot of like committed relationship type things. So with the Z generation, it was kind of like just, live by the seat of your pants type of thing, and single parent households and cultural differences and stuff, where it got to the point of spreading, sexually transmitted diseases. And the thing about having casual encounters with total strangers is that you don't know, like, their, history with sexually transmitted diseases. So it could basically be anybody. If you're in a desperate enough situation, you would never know that you had a sexually transmitted diseases unless you kind of know your body pretty well. And it was around age 18, like everybody was just using Tinder for the sake of using Tinder. And there's an interesting thing about how HIV is spreading. And it's spreading to people that, unbeknownst to them, have had flu-like symptoms that would be based in, a positive transmitted disease like HIV. So that was interesting. Also, there is a lot of other things that are developing that, whereas before your body would take in like foreign bodies, because when you breathe air, you take in like pollen, you take in mold, you take in moss, and you take in a lot of different things, and then you breathe them back out. A lot of times you can get sick or, have a bit of a cold because your body's trying to fight off these foreign bodies that have stayed and didn't get filtered out when you breathed in and out. So if you already have something that you don't know that you have, and then you have foreign bodies that are normal, you go, from A to B. And they were saying of how it transmits a different form of certain diseases or whatever have you, and how they mutate. I don't like biology by any means of the word, but I do like medicine. Now, there was something like this in Victorian age where there was a lot of different diseases going around. There was also the Black Plague and all this. And during that time, it was about around the time people didn't know that water was good for them. So, like, you would have a lot of foreign bodies on your, on your person. So, you would get a lot of these really, like, staph infection type diseases. Staph infections are kind of like the hangnail to certain diseases. So, if you have a staph infection and then you get exposed to other foreign bodies, it starts like a link or a chain, kind of like, the monkeys in a barrel. You attach all the monkeys and then it starts going off into different things. And it got to the point where if you were more promiscuous than the rest of the generation, you would die off. You would just like die off from syphilis or syphilis related diseases. And it was like airborne syphilis. So it's like, don't go outside, don't touch another person, don't, whatever. But that's kind of where we're at. It's kind of going into a Victorian era of disease spreading. And if you want to go back in history more, go to the pharaoh times of when Moses was in, Egypt. And there was like pox and frogs and firstborn sons were dying and all this. But it was due to, they believe witchcraft, but it was God's will or whatever, because people weren't understanding what exactly they were doing. Because it was the will of the people to leave and find their own way. I've never asked a Jewish person have they found their way yet, but I don't know. That's their path to choose if they found their path or not. But I just find it interesting that like history repeats itself. It doesn't matter what generation, it repeats itself. It could be anything from a pandemic to a like disease that's flying below the radar. And people don't think about it until it becomes a desperate plea of life and death, But if you have pure disregard for your own life and other people's lives, it makes you into a psychopath. So, and that's kind of where gun control and mental health kind of like trail off for me. Like, gun control is all well and good, but you have to think about, not everybody is going out there shooting up schools and hurting other people just out of spite. It's a mental disorder that you're totally disassociated with what's happening. And the government takes that and runs with it instead of dealing with mental health, which would be a billion-dollar industry in and of itself. They're dealing with guns because they want to make sure that the community and the people are civil obedient, which is when you get rewarded for stupid shit that the government or a group of people provide you with information that could be misleading and not justified with actual fact, in order to control how people work, spend, or do things in the community. So with gun control, that's kind of where it is, where it's headed. They don't want to deal with mental health because it would take too long, because you'd have to take it by like case by case, and they don't want to have like a facility like a doctor's thing when doctors are, on top of the world as far as America is concerned, and they don't want to make another facility that's mental health oriented where it makes it into a bigger thing than they want to put it as. But if anybody's seen America's woke cringe, you'll understand it's a growing thing. And it's like disassociative orders, where people can't deal with being mature individuals. They have to deal with being who they think they are, or how they feel comfortable. Which if you're getting thrown into a lot of things that take you out of the norm, or what you perceive as the norm, it makes you want to coil back into a place of comfort. And that's why a lot of mental health things haven't been written about. Depression's like that too. I have depression, and you kind of have like Karen mentality towards people. Like, you're like trying to protect yourself, but at the same time trying to save other people. You have like a savior's complex. But at the same time, if you do have depression, you also have I'm valuing myself and I value other people, but it comes across wrong. Like it's my way or the highway type things, and it throws people off. But with people with depression, they get angry instead of being calm. And they want to express how they feel in probably the worst way possible, because moments before or days before they've actually contemplated suicide. People with depression contemplate suicide probably a lot of times when they're at a low point. And then they go off on other people because of, people not understanding where they're coming from or the inconvenience of a particular thing. Now, people with depression constantly have to be under the constant watch of either a protection or comfort. So if you get their coffee wrong, they'll blow up at you. If you have like a garish necklace on or garish clothes on or you're tacky, they'll let you know, but probably in the worst way possible. Instead of like being socially acceptable and saying that's interesting, they're like, that's garish and it's hurting my eyes. Like very like sly, or they make a bigger deal about it than it needs to be. But it's because they feel personally uncomfortable with the situation. And most of their lives, it will be uncomfortable because a lot of people have come at them sideways and have, geared themselves to being like, narcissistic. People with depression can't stand people that are narcissists or self-centered. So they will they will fight back. So, because people with depression have dealt with narcissists before, or people that have poked fun at them for being different. So they'll do the same thing to other people under the worst way possible, and that's anger, and that's kind of being like insensitive in some cases. So it's all rolled into one big old cookie. But yeah, I've dealt with my depression for a while, and I kind of know what what would throw me into a cycle of I don't like that, I'm angry about it, and I kind of don't want to look at it. Because I myself, like, I'm an extrovert, but I'm an introvert at the same time. I'm an introvert when I feel uncomfortable, but I'm an extrovert if I'm uncomfortable and I have to say something. Like if you work a job or you're like in customer service, you have to say something, because if you have depression, you don't want people constantly attacking you or saying that you're like a bad person for not giving them what they want. And it's not the fact of free, it's the fact of discomfort. Whereas if they were discomforted before, or they feel like they're not worthy of like being around people, they will blow up and want things for free because of their own self-worth issues. But yeah, it's a very it's a very complicated scenario. But with my depression, I know the triggers. I know that if I feel uncomfortable, I'm going to say something to somebody and it's not going to come out right, and it's going to offend them, or they're going to attack me for being insensitive. I'm not trying to be insensitive. I'm trying to comfort myself and see my own self-worth in controlling a situation. And in controlling a situation, I'm overstepping my bounds. I get that. I know. But at the same time, I don't want, to be that way. You know what I mean? But since, you have the disconnect of people kind of not understanding it and all this stuff. And the worst part is the racist comments, and women get it the worst. It's either you're a white woman, you're Hispanic, or you're Native American, you're black, you're any race. Somebody has poked fun at you at some point or another, and it was triggering, like, and it made you psychologically re-step your entire life, and it's the worst feeling in the world. When somebody makes you to the point of tears, you reconnect all the pieces of your life that came apart, and it's all your fault. And that's how depression works, you know. You disassociate yourself and then you put the pieces back together, and it's terrible. But anyway, I have PTSD, so like anything like triggering. Um anything triggering is triggering. But with PTSD, abandonment issues, I can disassociate myself with people a lot of times and not mean to. You know, like I'm a self worker. Like I can work alone on a big project and be totally fine with that. But I think group activities was where I got triggered. I can't like I don't want to say it like that. I can't be that person that does all the work and then is associated in a group. And I know a lot of people that have PTSD say the same thing. If I'm working in a group, you're taking a section of the work. And if you're not taking or pulling your weight, it's going to be very triggering to me. Because I don't believe people would like look at me or the people I'm associated with the same way if somebody else isn't pulling their weight in a group atmosphere. That's why I kind of work alone. All right. And that's just me being an extrovert. But yeah, PTSD, there's a lot of triggers. It depends if you were abandoned as a child or you were orphaned in some way or there was some type of abuse or a single parent household. And I hate to like, you know, attack people that have been part of a single parent household. But not all single parent households are bad. Some parents have more masculine energy and some have a more fulfilling female energy that would cycle into all areas of your life and roles that you need both parents to play, but you are only dealing with one. There's also exposing your kids to the opposite gender through your own family and having them ask questions that they would usually ask one parent or two parents and see how the mother and father react. And this could be hypothetical, but if you know how your mom or father would answer a question and then you ask like your grandmother or like an aunt how they would answer the question, it can be varying because of their own experiences are very different. So you kind of have to be raised by a village. You can't just be raised by one person. So it's a lot of stuff. So, but yeah, I don't like people thinking that it's only one-sided. Like I get where I'm coming from. Other people don't. And I feel like a lot of people that say that they have mental issues aren't really addressing the bigger issue, which is comfort, feeling vulnerable, or anything that's been traumatic that you weren't comforted in that moment about or explained the truth about a situation. They can be very traumatic for anybody with a mental disorder, and some people that are faking mental disorders. It really is a mockery to the system when you do that because people with mental disorders are trying to make a connection with other people. They're trying to be accepted by others. And people that fake it don't understand that repercussion. You can tell people are trying to fake it when they're not connecting with an audience or connecting with people of same or like-minded causes of their affiliation with mental health and mental awareness. I love M&Ms. Comfort food. But if you have mental, what do you call it? Dysplasia, but it is a disorder. There's going to be levels and events and experiences that you faced that deal with your mental disorder directly. And you do have to kind of talk to a therapist or a doctor about some of these issues that you may be having. Because with comfort levels, there's a threshold for pain as well. So if you were in a pain level of like 10, you're gonna have like really like pin tip type of, things. If your pain level was higher than 10, like mine, you will feel other people's pain. That's usually how empaths work. But yeah, it depends of how big a threshold of comfort and pain you've suffered in your life. Um, that's how you get a disorder. If you feel like your life's been threatened, you go through a lot of trauma. Because it's like the shock of trauma, and then it's like the aftershocks if it keeps happening, and you start having cycles of that trauma over and over again. But you have to resolve that trauma in order to move on and have healthy relationships, which is hard. So I commend anybody dealing with mental pain, mental pressure, or any type of mental issue, because you do have to work on it. It's not like it's going to go away one day. It's going to be a constant, how do I feel today? Do I feel this? Do I feel that? Do I feel normal? Is there going to be a trigger today? You know, and you kind of have to gear up to be, surprised by people. And that's no way to live, I don't think. But you do have to kind of do some self-care, make yourself happy before you go out in the world. And try to control, like, what you drink and your food and stuff. So then you leave nothing to chance if you're having a bad day already. So, anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it for now. I'll probably re-enter this at some point or another when I myself feel a little triggered. But I do think people need to take mental health more seriously than they have been. I don't think gun control is a big issue. I think mental health is a bigger issue. Because people aren't comfortable. They feel more vulnerable. They feel more like they have to go into a certain point of maturity or fall back into a comfort level. And the two aren't the same anymore. So it's hard for a lot of people. Anyway, I will see you in the next reading. Hopefully you like this one. It wasn't really a reading, it was a discussion. And, you have to think about yourselves as perceptions of, yourself, not as the environment in which you live. Try to be better every day, but also realize that you are prone to fall back into certain patterns, okay? Take care of yourself, take care of everyone you know and your family, and talk to somebody. If you feel like it's hard some days or you blow up at somebody, you need to talk to people, because if you have depression, you're kind of like in the middle. You're always going to feel like you don't belong in a situation. And you do belong here. You're going to make somebody very happy one day. And it could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be a dog you adopt from a shelter that you make very happy. So just look out for that. And also people that are more, empathy. You have to be part of the world, because you're going to make the biggest changes if you get on a positive road to healing. Okay? So that's what I'm trying to do myself. I've healed a lot, but I still have a long way to go. Alright? So, anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself. Alright? Do something nice for yourself too, okay? Later.